Hi, Jonah from Parts Built 3D here, and today I'm going to show you how to put together the Bondtech Extruder Upgrade Kit for the Prusa i3, MK2, and MK2S. Right here I've laid out all the parts that come with the kit, and I've numbered the bolts 1 through 5 according to size to make them a little easier to identify in the video. And here we have 2 little needle bearings and the pin, the drive gears, thread insert, 5 nuts, the tensioning knob for the filament, and then an extra set screw. And I think that is in case you lose the one that comes in the gear. It's pretty small, easy to lose. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to print out your plastic parts. And these are the plastic parts. And you can download the STL files from Bondtech's website. You can also find that link through our website. And I'll put a link down in the bottom of the video there. And once you have them printed out, what I did, I took a 3mm drill bit and I ran it down through the filament path there. Just kind of cleaned it out a little bit to make sure we have a nice clean path for the filament. I also ran a 1/8 inch drill bit through all the bolt holes. Makes it a little easier to get the bolts in. And this is printed in Formfutura PET, which is an upcycled PETG filament. And I also printed it in Formfutura CarbonFil. I just did this one today, and I really like the way that turned out. I mean, it almost looks like a Bondtech extruder there. I also printed it in Breathe 3D carbon film nylon, and that did a very nice job as well. After you print it out, a nice tool, get a little pipe reamer, deburrer, and it works really well for taking those edges off. They just come right off. Nice clean line. I found it's a lot easier to use for long edges than using a X-Acto knife. It also is nice for cleaning out round holes. Anyway, back to the assembly. What you're going to do is you got your 5 nuts here, and you are going to place them in the appropriate spots on the extruder housing. And this is the back, we'll call it the back portion of the extruder housing. It's the part that it attaches to the carriage. And you get 1 nut goes there, 1 nut goes there, and then you got 2 nuts in these 2 little slots. And when you push these in, I used, got a pair of pliers. It's pretty tight, so I got a pair of pliers, grabbed the nut and just pushed it down in there, and then used a punch to kind of push it down the rest of the way. You want to push them down far enough so that they're in line with the hole, so you can see right through. See, the nuts are in there and you can't even see them there, and that's how they should be. Let's see, for this one, the front of the extruder housing, the only place a nut goes on this one is right in here. And it goes in a little ways, so an easy way to get that one in is to thread the nut. A little hard to do it. I got band-aids on my fingers and a little harder to hold on to the nut there. Anyway, I thread the nut on the bolt a little bit, then just feed it down in there. And I just give it a little tap to seat it. Not too hard, you just want to seat it so it doesn't fall out when you're moving the part around. And there you go. You have all the nuts on. And you're ready to start with the next step. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take the gear, and we want the gear that has the set screw in it. So it's not that one. There's the set screw. So that's the gear we want to do. And we're going to put that on the motor. So you have your printer totally disassembled and you got the drive motor here, and we're going to set the gear with the geared portion towards the motor. And there, slide it down. And to initially find the right position, and we'll adjust it later, but I just put the outer portion of the extruder assembly on and then line the filament teeth up with this little guide right here. Just snug it a little bit so it doesn't move. You don't need to tighten it down too hard. Now you've got your gear on. And now we are going to take the number 1 bolt, that's the smallest one, and we're going to take the outer portion of the extruder housing and turn it over so you're looking at the flat side. And, oh, sorry, no, turn it this way and slide the bolt down through that lower right hole there. Okay, so now that you have the bolt in there, we can attach that to the motor. And when you attach it to the motor, it's important to make sure the wires are oriented in the correct direction, which would be facing down when the motor's attached. So put that on like so. See if I can get this so you can see it. We've got the wires facing towards the bottom of the extruder housing. Tighten that on like so. Okay, now we're going to install the hot end. And one thing you want to do with both sides of the extruder housing is clean out this area right here. That's gets a little debris in there sometimes. You want to make sure it's nice and clean so there's nothing keeping the extruder from, or the hot end from seating down in there. And another thing you're going to have to do is the tubing that comes up here is cut a little bit off. You'll have to measure, go ahead and set your hot end in and measure how much you had to take off. I had to take off about 3 millimeters. And you cut that off with a real sharp razor. And then what I like to do is take a little Phillips screwdriver and just ream that out just a little bit. I'm not trying to take material off, I just spread it out a little bit to give the filament a little funnel to go into. And we go ahead and put this on and try to put it in the right orientation. And since this is the piece that's going to be going on to the carriage, I want the wires coming out on the left side. Just put that down in there, and depending on your print settings, it can be pretty tight to put it down in there. If you over extrude a little bit, it'll be pretty tight. That goes just like so. And we're going to go ahead and turn it over. And we're going to take the two, oh, that one's gone on a little adventure there. We're going to take 2 of the number 4 bolts. Just put 1 in for now. And we will take it over and attach that to the motor. You got your inner portion of the extruder housing on here. Got your hot end in there. You're just going to turn it over. You could actually take this off and put it on that side, make it a little easier. Now when you put the hot end on the outer portion of the extruder housing, it's a lot tighter. I think Bondtech did that to make sure that you have a nice, it gets a good firm grip on the hot end. So it's not going to go down quite as easily. Just put it down a little bit, and if you have the tube cut to the right length, you won't have a problem. Go ahead and slip it on top there. Take your number 4 bolt. Just take it down till it catches. We don't want to snug anything up too tight yet. So now we have the extruder housing partially assembled with the motor attached to it. And we are going to assemble the lever, the filament tensioning lever that will go right there. And I'm also going to show you how to put that little thread insert in. Okay, let's go ahead and assemble the filament tension lever. And I printed this one in CarbonFil, Formfutura CarbonFil PETG. Actually, this one is printed out of Breathe 3D carbon-filled nylon. And this is the Formfutura PETG, and this is the one I'm going to use. So take your 2 needle bearings and your gear, slide the needle bearings in. Got your pin. Now when you put the gear on, you'll see a little indent on the lever, and that's the side where the gears go. Put it on like so. Take your pin, slide it in. Now that went in real easy for me because I cleaned up those holes nicely, and I recommend doing that. But don't run a 1/8 inch drill bit through there because that'll loosen it up too much. Just take a little X-Acto knife or a pick and get any sagging filament out. I printed this without a support, so there was a little bit of sagging there. Clean that out, and then the pin goes right through. Now we're going to install the thread insert, and the way I did it was I took the thread insert and I threaded it onto one of the bolts. And if you look at it, and I'm not sure if it'll show up in the video too well, but thread insert has teeth on it, and then one end is smooth. And you want to thread it on with the teeth facing that way and the smooth end away from the bolt. So it goes on like that. That way when you go to put it in the extruder housing, it'll go in the correct orientation. So go ahead and thread it onto the bolt, and then we'll heat it up. So once you have it threaded onto the bolt, you need to heat that up so it'll melt the plastic. And I'm going to go ahead and use a heat gun to do it. Wait for that to heat up a little bit. And then once I heat it up, I'm going to take the extruder, I'm going to turn it over here, and I turn this off for a moment. The hole that it's going to go into is this hole right here, and we're going to heat this up, and we're just going to push it right down into the hole. Put it down till it's about flush, maybe a little, sink it in nicely, a little past flush, and then hold it very steady when it's in there. Don't move it at all, because when it's real hot, it'll melt the plastic and you could tip it, and then you ended up with it cockeyed, and that's no good. So I'll go ahead and do that. And you can heat this up over anything. I mean, I did it with once, just heating it up over the open flame on the stove. Still warm, so I'm going to give it a moment to cool down, just so that I don't move it at all while I'm taking the bolt out. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the number 2 bolts, the second to the shortest, and the number 2 bolt feeds in and will catch on this nut that you put in the slot there. So get an angle so you can see it. Slide it right in. Don't even snug that one up. Just get it down till it's catching the nut. You're going to have kind of a seesaw effect to get it tightened down. And then we want to go ahead and put a bolt in on this side. And the bolt that goes right there is your number 3 bolt. That's the third, the one in the middle, the third longest. Put that down. My tool won't reach down there, it's a little too thick, so I'll use a hand one. Now if it's not catching the nut, you can push the nut in a little further as far as you can, but also just back off this side just a little bit. And that way you'll be able to get a little more squeezing on this side. That one you can squeeze down until it closes up the crack. You'll see the bolt just come through flush with the nut. Then we can tighten up the other side. Just snug, don't over tighten them. Okay, now we almost have it assembled. At this point, make sure this bolt is snugged down and this bolt is snugged down. Turn it over, snug this one down. Don't snug them too tight. These are not the hardest metal, these nuts, so they strip out pretty easily. And once you have those snugged down, you can adjust the, let's see if I can find an angle where you can see it. Right here, you can adjust the gear in there. And just reach in there with your Allen key, loosen up the set screw, and slide the gear back and forth on the shaft until the teeth that would grab the filament are lined up with the holes that guide the filament through. And then snug up your hex screw right there. Now that that's done, we can go ahead and put the tensioning lever on, and we're going to take one of our number 4 bolts, slide it in there. And that one you don't want to over tighten, you want to make sure this still moves freely. Once you have that on, you can take your tensioning bolt, put it on till you get a little bit of tension. There you have it. Now the last thing to do is attach it to the carriage, just like so, and that's what your last 3 bolts are for. You have your number 2 bolt, and that's going to come through this hole right here, and it's going to screw into this bolt, one in the slot. Reach around behind here and feed it in. Then you have a number 4 bolt, and that goes through this hole here. And then you have your longest bolt, the number 5 bolt, and that goes through up here. I'm gonna push them all back out. Put this up like so. there you have it. It's attached. The order you put it together is pretty important. And the hardest trouble I had the first time I put it together was figuring out which bolt went where. So I'm hoping this video will help in figuring that out. And basically then you just got to put your extruder back together. And I know there's lots of videos online on how to do that, so I'm not going to do that in this video. But any links you need will be in the bottom of the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to email us and we'll help you out. Thank you for watching. Bye.